Hi, everyone. Welcome to the final day of the PTPT conference. My name is Jenny Lorca. I am an Asian woman with dark hair and glasses, and I'm wearing a yellow sweater. I've lived with chronic and persistent pain and complex chronic disease for coming up on 5 years now. I'm a member of this fantastic, the steering committee of this fantastic conference. And among my roles within the pain community, one that fills my bucket to overflowing is as a volunteer peer support facilitator with Pain BC. And as a child of immigrants, a settler of color, and a lifelong resident of the Greater Vancouver area, my family and I are grateful for our rich existence on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish First Nations. This land is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and with whom I'm humbled to have shared bread, wisdom, knowledge, and support. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jenny. Hi, everyone. My name is Delene Linkowicz. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm a white woman wearing I'm a white woman, blonde, green eyes, and I'm wearing a light blue sweater today. I'm joining from Guelph, Ontario, which I wanted to acknowledge as the stolen land and traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Ottawandaron, and Haudenosaunee people, as well as the treaty land and territory of the Mississauga of the Credit. I'm grateful to work, play, love, connect on these lands. I live with chronic pain myself. I'm also a sister and a daughter of family who live with chronic pain. I'm a PhD student researching pediatric pain, a wife, and a friend. And I'm very grateful to be here today. My ties to peer support come from my personal experiences engaging in it as a person living with chronic pain, as well as my PhD research actually focuses on developing a peer support group for adolescents with chronic pain. I guess to get started today, this session is really meant to, first of all, let people know about peer support and what's offered in Canada in terms of peer support, as well as to create a space for connection, because we know that healing comes through the power of community. And so with that said, for those who may not be aware, I just wanted to quickly, say like what peer support is. And so peer support is really when people with similar conditions, so in this case, chronic pain, come together and share experiences. And through this, they can also share things like resources and provide emotional support. So again, it's this place for coming together and connecting and empowering one another. Briefly, we just kind of wanted to give an overview of what peer support may look like. So peer support can look many different ways. It can be in more of a one-on-one setting, so that may be more, if it's more formal in a mentorship, pairing, as well as just, if two people living with chronic pain meet for coffee and they want to talk, that would be a more informal way of one-on-one. Peer support can also be in group settings. So that's kind of what we're trying to emulate today, and also is what a lot of the organizations and groups that are actually with us today, they have as well. So they have group peer support sessions. Peer support can be online, it can be in person, it can be in person it can be online face-to-face, it can be online, in chat rooms and blogs. There's just so many different ways that peer support can look. And like I said as well, it can also be formal or informal. Now I'm going to pass it off to Jenny to give a little bit of an overview of what benefits may come from peer support.
Thanks, Delane. So I've shared in the Q&A, so I'm some links to webinars that talk more about peer support and what's happening in Canada around peer support with people who live with pain, as well as the current research on the impact of peer-led pain support groups on individuals. So I'm going to ask one of our amazing team to take those links and put that also in the feed loop chat, please, and thank you. And I've also shared the site for the Mental Health Commission of Canada, which talks about making the case for peer support, because there's a lot of research on the benefits of peer support and mental health and addictions, but not so much in the realm of pain, where there's so much overlap and intersectionality. And I'm sure that many of us have experienced that. And much of the foundation of pain support, peer support in pain today is grounded in this work that in mental health and addictions. So we had originally planned for me to talk about the benefits of peer support, but really, we really want to hear what you have to say, the benefits that you have experienced, because I see a number of familiar names and faces who may have joined us in the peer supported connected sessions this week. We have our facilitators who are also peers. And so we just want to encourage everyone to put either in the Q&A in the Zoom or in the feed loop section, the chat in the feed loop section, what experiences you've had with peer support, what benefits you may have gained, what has been helpful, what might not have been helpful. Because I can talk about what social connections mean to me, but really we want to hear what social connections and the benefits of peer support mean to you. Yeah, so while we're waiting for everyone to do that, and please continue to engage in this way. It is a really odd way of engaging, right? So we want to be able to integrate you as much as possible into this session. Among the benefits of peer support is social connection. There's people with lived experience often report high levels of social isolation, which I've heard, which the research has said can actually be as harmful or even more harmful than cigarette smoking. And peer support helps, and the social connection found in peer support helps to ameliorate that social isolation. In peer support, you can learn to learn strategies of living with pain, like addressing sleep and nutrition, how to talk to healthcare professionals, and there's a lot of networking, sharing, creative problem solving that help to really build both internal and external resources. And throughout this week, we've seen a lot of incredible sharing. Among personal growth is among those benefits, increases knowledge, confidence, self-awareness, and sense of empowerment. It provides an opportunity to simultaneously learn and teach each other. So there's a mutuality in this peer support relationship. I'm going to quote Virginia McIntyre just a little bit because she talks about the bi-directional quality of peer support. There's improved clinical outcomes like better symptom management, decreased symptom distress, reduced crisis, fewer clinician visits, trips at the emerge, and really, an increased sense of patient agency and efficacy, because the more we learn to talk about our conditions with other people, the more we learn about ourselves, how to speak to other people, particularly clinicians, about our pain, how to advocate for ourselves. And this makes us effective partners and drivers in our care, because we are the experts in ourselves. What's different about peer-led support groups versus other groups not led by peers? The reality is there's often a power imbalance in groups that are not led by peers. There's people who have the information and people who receive the information. And groups led by peers serve to flatten, or at least try to flatten, that power imbalance. Because yes, we as peer support facilitators may have the Zoom link, or we may have the education to present, or we may have, the advantage of extra training, but really we're still peers. We still, experience loss and grief and the fear and the pain of diagnosis, the social isolation, the anger. And so, it's our intention to create an environment where we can learn from each other. There are different types of, thank you for that, Delane, for posting that. There are different types of peer support available, like condition-specific or identity-based groups. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we get into the individual organizations. But really, these are, important because especially when people have aspects of their identities and where they intersect, people might not feel the same kind of freedom to express these aspects in the more generalized groups. So, for example, Pain BC this year launched a 2S LGBTQ plus group, a young adults group, and a BIPOC group for people who identify as Black, Indigenous, a person of color, or body of culture, and language-based groups, which is really exciting. And so what we've tried to do here today and model a little bit is by inviting Alice and Sylvie from AQDC to facilitate groups in French, because one, language is an integral part of one's identity, and two, because it serves all of us when we build connections and partnerships across Canada. And this is what this is what Pain Canada is doing this week, which is so exciting. So we can learn from each other. And on that note, I'm going to pass it off to Delane to introduce all the peer facilitators.
Thank you, Jenny. So now we are going to do what I think may be my favorite part of the session is to introduce all of the amazing facilitators who have joined us from organizations and groups from across Canada that offer peer support. So first, we're going to start with Alice and Sylvie, and they are coming to us from the l'Association Québécoise de la douleur chronique, so the Chronic Pain Association of Quebec, also referred to as AQDC, whose mandate is to really improve chronic pain and reduce the isolation of people living with chronic pain in Quebec. They have 13 regional peer support groups and many other aims that can be found on their website, which we will share shortly. I'll move on and Alice and Sylvie, if you wanted to just give a quick introduction.
Thank you. So I'm Alice. I'm currently the Vice President of the AQDC, the Association Québécoise de douleur chronique, and I used to be responsible of the peer support groups, and now I gave that mission to Sylvie, actually, that is doing a wonderful job. And as Delane said, we used to have a lot of peer support groups. Right now we are rebuilding actually our sales system, so we have a couple of groups online, and Sylvie is doing an amazing job to having groups to start again in person. And so we are all across Quebec, and as most of our groups are online, everybody can access if you have an internet connection and a device that allows you to. But we also offer conferences, monthly, weekly conferences with students as well, and phone line, also a crisis phone line, and a lot of other stuff. So that's going to be it for me, and I'm going to pass it on to Sylvie.
Thank you, Alice, and thank you, Hall. So my name is Sylvie. I live from very close to Ottawa, in the French part of Quebec. And so like Alice said, marvelously, thank you for that. I'm now responsible for the mutual aid groups for the AQDC, but I'm also a passion partner for the researcher in the pain at the University of Quebec in Abitibi-Témiscamingue. So in the part of this important role, I can help people in many ways and work with the researcher. It's very amazing and help me people to help people. So that's amazing. And I'm so glad to be with you this week. It was a wonderful occasion to connect with all parts of this wonderful country. Thank you, Hall.
Thank you both. So now I'll move on to Pain BC. So Pain BC really aims to enhance the well-being of people living with pain through empowerment, care, education, and innovation. Pain BC has 9 regional peer support groups, 3 identity-based peer support groups and wellness groups. So 2S LGBTQ+, young adult, and BIPOC for people who identify as Black, Indigenous, people of color, or other bodies of culture. And actually in 2024, they're intending to launch language-based groups in Cantonese, Mandarin, and Punjabi. So today from Pain BC, we have Nancy and Taylor, who I will invite to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Delane. Thank you, Jenny. My name's Nancy, and I'm coming to you today from beautiful Rossland, BC, where it's snowy. And I'm really happy and honored to say that I live on the unceded and traditional territories of the Ktunaxa, Sinixt, and Kootenai South Métis Nations. I'm grateful that that we are living on their lands. So for myself, I am a mom, I'm a wife, 40 plus years, I'm a grandma. I have 4 grandchildren who I love dearly. I am a person who struggles with chronic pain and have throughout my entire adult life. I have something called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, if anybody has heard of that. So it causes me pain on a regular basis. I'm a retired nurse and I worked for 36 years in mental health, and group therapy and individual therapy was my focus. And so after I retired, I had the opportunity to hook up with Pain BC and running some of their peer-led support groups, and I do the Kootenay region. So thank you. Pass
Hi,
it on to
everybody.
Susan.
Hi, my name is Taylor. You can use any pronouns for me. I'm coming to you from the territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people, otherwise known as Vancouver. I am an applied scientist. I've got a science mind and a body of pain, and I try to meld those two together into something that works for our participants in the peer-led support groups through Pain BC. I've been a facilitator with Pain BC for about 4 or 5 years maybe, and I've been running support groups before that. And I love connecting with people in this way, and I think it's really important. So I'm happy to keep doing it.
Thank you so much to both of you. And so now we are going to be introducing Virginia and Heather from the People in Pain Network, otherwise known as Pippin. So Pippin is a non-profit, volunteer-driven organization in Nova Scotia. Their mission is to promote the well-being of people living with persistent pain and those who care about them. And so they have 5 peer support groups, 2 in person, 3 virtual, and then 1 dedicated specifically to young adults. And so now I'm going to pass it along to Virginia and Heather to introduce themselves.
All right, I'll start. I'm Virginia, so I'm the lead of the organization. I'm the president and the executive director, and Delane did a good overview of what we are. We are also been reached out, and we're expanding in-person groups into New Brunswick, where we hope to see next year to roll out 2 or 3. I'm also with Pain Canada National Advisory Committee, the Canadian Pain Society, Personal Lived Experience Committee. I'm also the privilege to educate at a few of our universities here, not only about living with pain, but about peer support and the value of peer support. Thrilled to share that I'm also a recent recipient of the May Day Fund Fellowship, which has been amazing. And personally, I like to spend time with my grandson and be outdoors. It's beautiful. And I really look forward to connecting with everybody. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Heather Carver, and I'm with People in Pain, as Elaine said. I run or facilitate, the morning group online on a Thursday morning. I live in Prince Edward Island, Canada, so way up in the East Coast. I am a dog mom, and I enjoy, you'll hear her. I enjoy crafting and just spending time with my dog.
That was amazing. I love how your dog also immediately knew that you were introducing yourself as a dog mom and decided to jump in. Lovely. So thank you everybody for introducing yourselves, and now I'll pass it along to Jenny.
So now we're at the meat of this first part of the event, which is the panel discussion, because we really, like I said, our facilitators are also people who live with chronic pain and possibly other conditions. And so we really want to hear about your experiences as facilitators running your groups. I know that some of you have shared like how long you've run, but really we want to know, what do you get out of facilitating your groups? What's the draw? What's the, what are the challenges, right? So, and what keeps you in it? So let's start with Nancy. Are you open to sharing about that first? Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Jenny. For myself, as a person, I worked in mental health, and I worked with group therapy for 36 years of my life. And as a person living with chronic pain, I knew there wasn't much out there for support. There was very limited amounts of support. And so I was looking online, trying to find what I could find to support myself in living with pain. But also I recognized how much people really benefited and grew from being in the group support and finding that group, finding that connection, having people hear you and feeling validated and that people understood where you were coming from, and you didn't really have to explain that in a big way. And so when I ran groups, especially with groups with chronic pain, I really benefited as much as the people who were in the group that benefited with it. And so when I retired and Pain BC was coming up with this new format, I jumped on board right away because I have a passion and a desire to be there, but also I just found that it's a win-win. It's a win for me and it's a win for the people in the group because we exchange things. I learn something all the time from the people that are in the group. And I think that I can share with them some of the tips and things that I've learned as well. And so for me, it's just a safe place and a place where I really feel accepted as I am. And then I think other people can be accepted as they are. And that's such a valuable experience.
Thanks so much, Nancy. Very true. Virginia, I'd really love to hear what your thoughts are.
Thank you. Well, kind of like Nancy, and one thing is I got in there and I found that after I'd done my self-management classes and I returned to work, and been years I was out of work, you're still very much isolated from people, and you're isolating them because you go to work, but you can't go and you can't do other stuff. You can't go, and the people who had lost as you struggle for pain, they don't come back. It's these lost connections have happened. So, and I had so much challenges getting help. Like I said, it was 3 years hovering in a system, which was very challenging. But then, so I decided after years and years of really keeping quiet that I had pain, that I was going to open a support group. And as I got into this, and I realized, as Jenny or Delane had repeated, it's bidirectional. And it's like, wow, I open this for them, but I can't get over how much I get from it. I walk in this space and I take my mask off. I can share I live with pain. I can be me. If I'm having a bad day, I can say, I'm having a bad day, guys. I'm here, but I'm having a bad day. And I can't do that anywhere else. I certainly don't do it at work. And, and I look forward to it. I look forward to the in-person. I look forward to the virtual group when we meet people virtual everywhere. So I've also found through the years of doing this, I keep learning because our groups are very much on the balance of connection and education. And I'm actually even been able to decrease my meds more and been able to feel better, and because I keep learning. So it's wonderful. So it's about the connections, but the learning. And it's about this. It's about all these lovely people that I have now met nationally, and everybody here is online, and many I've met and continue to meet. So it's wonderful. It's a nice community. So that's what brings me constantly back to the table and has me now take over the organization. And thrilled to have Heather with me. And every time I reach out and say, would you do this? Would you do this? And everybody are willing to help. So it's great.
Virginia, you warm the cockles of my heart. Thanks so much. How about we switch over to Sylvie? What's your experience like as a facilitator?
I just want to say at the beginning of the pandemic, the AQDC virtual groups that really helped me and make a huge difference. And it was Alice at that time who facilitated the most part of the group, the virtual group. So really, it was so very helpful for me to don't be alone anymore, and felt as everyone can understand me because they live with pain in every day. So for me, it was so important to give at my turn for the population, and particularly for people live with pain, because we also thinking and feeling alone, and it's not a good feeling, So being together and help each other and no judgmental, very safe space, and it's great, and it gives me the motivation to continue and to share all the tricks, all the tips I found, the Q&A tips for many years to searching. So giving for some people who they have no clue, no help, they sometimes so very in help situation. So I'm so grateful to help, and feeling I made maybe a little difference in each group I facilitated.
Thanks so much, CV. I noticed that your name is like among like primary educators and presenters in AQDC. So it feels feels really good to hear that you've, as a result of your experience, you've taken such an active role in your organization. Delane, I was going to switch to you, but are you okay to? I just saw you take a drink of water, so
I was preparing.
All right.
Yeah, so I'll just start with the caveat that I actually don't lead any official groups right now, but I will be soon. I have had the pleasure of leading the Peer Supported Connections both last year and this year for the PTPT conference. And, I think just to echo what people have said, the thing that gets me every time without fail is just seeing people really feel that they're not alone. And I think that is just so powerful. And to hear people say, I feel so validated. I feel seen. It's just something that's so powerful, and it really does. Every time I see it happen, take over. Like it really gets to me because I do think it's so powerful. And it was something that I honestly think was one of the biggest things that helped me live with pain. I was really struggling as an adolescent, and then as I transitioned into being an adult with chronic pain, that was when I actually reached out to other people who lived with pain, and that's really when I discovered peer support, and it's absolutely changed my life. And I see it changing so many other people's lives as well. And to be able to, share resources and tips and tricks from people who know, from people who've used those things, from the true experts, is something that's just really so beautiful, and also the empowerment that happens as well. I always love to say that community is power, and so I think that peer support is a really great testament to that.
Thanks, Delane. And, to go back to the mentorship session that you did earlier, I mean, this is just you and Alex and Therese presented, right? It's just one. Peer support can look like many different things, and facilitated groups is one of them. Your mentorship is another. And so it's really exciting to see you take such a broad role in peer support, because in research and on boots on the ground. So thanks for that. Heather, how about we hear from you today?
It was actually my pain specialist that hooked me up with Virginia. And I started attending their virtual group. It was during the pandemic. And like everyone has said, it's a safe place. I try to, when I'm out and about, as Virginia was talking about, I have a mask on. And I don't have to have that mask on here. And I've learned so much. I can't even begin to say how much I've learned during these groups, in the education part, as well as just from talking to individuals that live with pain. Like I've been living with chronic pain for about 20 years. So just started with the pain self-management support groups 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago. So it has really helped my pain levels, I've learned so much in just dealing and living with chronic pain.
Thank you, Heather. That it strikes me that your pain specialist connected you to Virginia and to Pippin, whereas many specialists don't have that impetus or information to do so. So what a gift to be able to have that kind of relationship. Alice, how about, let's hear from you next. Thank you.
Thank you. For me, I started to go to peer support groups as a patient because I was lost and I needed some help. And also I just came to Canada at the same time as I developed chronic pain. So I arrived in a new country, a new health system. It was really difficult to navigate. And peer support groups offered me so much. And I found so much answer to all of my questions. And actually, quite soon, I was like, okay, maybe I could actually do it too and try to help people too. So I started to be a facilitator. And as most of you named it, I learned so much and I keep learning every time I facilitate a group. And we give a lot, but actually so much is coming back to us and it's so positive. And the mask also, I relate a lot about what you said about wearing a mask. And I actually realized that even in my own home with my roommates, I still wear my mask. And the groups are the only place still to that day that I don't have to wear that mask, which feels amazing. And recently I also had someone asking me, how is it that you smile that much, Alice, but knowing that you have chronic pain, how is that possible? And I just answered, when I got my diagnosis and a couple years into having chronic pain and being really depressed, I actually had a moment of, okay, I'm 26. I have a long life ahead and I have to make a choice. Like, it's either I do something about it that is going to be positive and that I can live with it, or it's going to have to stop. So I just decided to go on and try to find a positive into it and then to help people with it by telling my story. And it feels wonderful even if the suffering is still there sometimes. The suffering is way less. The pain is there, but the suffering decreases a lot because of the peer support groups. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Alice. Yeah, the pain is less, but the pain is there, but the suffering is less. You really speak to how it is possible to hold opposing states together, right? Like the pain and the suffering and, the connection and the curiosity. Thank you so much. Taylor, you're second to last, I think. Yeah.
Hi. So I started going to chronic pain support groups as a participant when my chronic pain came back after I thought that it was gone. I had a surgery and I thought it was all gone. And then it came back about 2 years later with a vengeance, and I didn't handle it very well. I was very depressed, like Alice was mentioning, and I was angry. I was just like mad at the world for giving this to me, and like mad at myself and mad at just a lot of things, and just I had this anger that I wasn't used to. And so I started going to these groups and immediately they spoke to me. They just understood what I was so mad about, and like they understood why one would be mad. And that anger just like melted away, honestly, as I kept going back. When my local support group was folding because the just burnout, basically, I didn't want to see it end. And so I took it over, and knowing nothing about what I was doing. I held space for people who graciously came back every week. They kept coming back, and it was just so fantastic. And then when Pain BC started up their pain support groups, I immediately jumped on board, and I get so much out of it. Like others have mentioned, one thing that I'll mention is that I always get like, I don't know if others get this, but I get this like mad rush of energy as soon as every session ends. It's the weirdest thing, but it's so cool. I never know what it's about, but like I just get this mad rush of energy, and like I'm talking a mile a minute, and it's just so fun. I love it. It's like 9 at night, and I'm yeah, just bursting with energy. And so I love running these. I also facilitate the LGBTQIA group through Pain BC, and I think that's fantastic, having a group for queer folks. And I, at the same time, I do, while I love that we have demographic groups now, I do see the value. I see so much value in having universal pain support groups, because honestly, like I learned so much from the people who are older than me, and who have decades on me, and also from the people who are super young and come to these. Like I learn a ton from them. And I think that like that knowledge sharing is so important. And there are so few intergenerational spaces. And for this to be such a like brave space, and like we make it the safest space that we can, and having that be an intergenerational group, I just think that's super powerful. And I love that we have these opportunities.
Right on. I am so with you there, Taylor. Thank you. Because you facilitate both, right? You facilitate the universal group and you facilitate the demographic group. And so you get that benefit of being able to bring both of those things into each other. Amazing. I guess it's my turn. Similar to Taylor, I came into being a peer support facilitator because I attended the peer support groups that were also run by Pain BC. I had started off actually as a coach in the Coaching for Health program with Pain BC, and also, you know, really recognized that similar to all of the stories that we've heard, I felt quite alone in my experience. And it was so exhausting to try to explain what my experience was. And so I found a shorthand, and I think people have been alluding to this, right? Being among peers creates a shorthand, and it alleviates some of that effort. There's less efforting, I find. And also, you know, I also agree with like, and grateful for, oh my God, my cat. I'm also grateful for the absolute permission to not be okay, right? Even when I'm facilitating. So it's okay to not be okay. I've facilitated in flares. Many people come in flares. There's this inherent, I'm going to say okayness again, okayness to show up as you are. And this is what we encourage, right? This is what we model, and this is what we encourage. So, you know, all I can say is I agree with everything that's been said and more. And like that just demonstrates how powerful and impactful being in a room of people who get where you're coming from is. So let's move on to questions. I thought we saw a question here earlier. Delaney, do you want to lead this one?
I'm not sure if Therese has any questions, or if people have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, the Q&A, raise your hand, whatever works best for you.
I don't have any questions. Oh, wait a minute. No, there's
Hi, I'm
nothing.
going to say something. My name is Ellie.
Hi,
And
Ellie.
I think that somebody has recognized that my hand was up, but I have one of those computers that just responds to my way of talking by putting my hand up. But I can pitch something in here about the peer support groups and the way they can flatten and de-hierarchicize, I made that word up, mixed collectivities of people. And so my group was a group that continued on from a group that Change Pain ran. And then our members just decided to continue. We're people of all ages, all backgrounds, all education levels, coming from different countries, and it just works. We've been going 2.5 years on our own steam, and it is we do it every 2 weeks, which I think is part of the longevity, maybe, because we don't have time to get involved with each other's no politics. Anyway, I'm a big fan of the value of these groups, and if anything ever happens to this one, I'm going to go on and start something of my own, because I do have a background in group facilitation. And thank you very, very much for today, for the whole conference.
Thank you, Ellie. This goes to show how powerful it is when we bring people together. And how powerful it is when people have a shared experience they want to continue, right? Like your Change Pain support group decided to go. Just like you guys sprouted wings, and it's amazing. Thank you. Does anyone have any comments in our panel to share? We saw a lot of nods, Ellie, when you were speaking, a lot of smiles, super true. Yeah. Well, if no
I think
comments
you
or other
were all
questions.
pretty self-explanatory, I think. There was no questions.
Yeah.
That's always a good thing.
Okay, well, I'm going to put this to the panel. We have about 5 minutes left or so. What challenges have you faced leading peer support groups? Taylor, I saw you nodding. Can I call on you?
Sure. Yeah, challenges. That's a good question. I think the biggest challenge, and something that we speak to in our guidelines at the top of each session, is really we encourage people to speak from their own experience. And we even go so far as to suggest using I statements, which I think are fantastic. And it's just like great practice for life, I guess. But we really encourage people to use I statements because so much of these support groups is feeling seen, right? And when somebody comes in and says a lot of you statements, and they're speaking from their own experience, but saying it like using the you pronoun, it it can alienate people, basically. And so that's where I think that a lot of the value in some of these demographic groups comes in, is people feel less alienated, because they feel like more people are speaking to their experience. And so, yeah, one of the things that I find challenging is when people make broad statements that apply to them, but they don't realize that it doesn't apply to everybody else, and it can make other people feel alienated, like I said. So really making people feel seen, and so making the speaker feel seen and affirming their experience, while at the same time letting the group know that it's okay to have other opinions and other experiences. And like, just because what that one person thinks is universal, that doesn't mean that it has to apply to everybody, right? And so really trying to like, trying to make everybody feel seen through our shared use of language. I think it's really powerful.
Mhm. Thank you, Taylor. I've noticed a couple of really good, really good question in the chat. So, okay, so one person says that does anyone have knowledge, brain frog, see, look at this. Does anyone have knowledge of how helpful Wing Chun, which is a slow form of Kung Fu that embodies gentleness and flexibility, tempers pain? To my surprise, they found it even more helpful than Tai Chi. That's wonderful that you found something that works for you, and that takes you out of your pain experience. One question came up that says, what happens when someone seems to need help, but you can't help? For example, one of the group members lives alone and cannot look after themselves and you're concerned. I'm wondering either someone from Pippin. Oh, Nancy, you got Nancy. Yes, because you live in a rural area.
I do live in a rural area. And since we've been doing Zoom, many of the people attending our group are not in our immediate area, right? They're a little bit more spread out than that. So we have, one thing that we've done is we have a private Facebook group that we connect with people as well. And sometimes we'll give them resources that way. And we've followed up with people as well, just if we've been really concerned. We've encouraged them to go back to Pain BC for support. We've encouraged them to connect with their doctors or their healthcare professionals, whether it be that mental health. We just kind of encourage them, and we'll usually follow up on a private message with them just to see how they're doing.
Thanks, Nancy. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Thank you for that. That's great that you do have the individualized help. Virginia, do you have something to share? You've got 1 minute before we start closing.
I just got to kind of echo something Nancy was, send them the resources that are available. But I think as facilitators, we also have to remember our boundaries. And it's hard, especially with these virtual groups, to be there all the time, or even our in-person groups. I had a senior, but she can't get there, but I can't start driving her to the group back and forth. So I think it's a real challenge for us to find that balance. Really do.
Yeah, excellent point. I can speak to BC specifically in that among our resources, we have the pain support line where people can call. I will at some point put it in the chat when I remember, or if somebody from our team could put that in the chat, that would be helpful. And in terms of but regionally, I would say that, say, for example, possibly the Power of Pain portal might have resources. Yeah, Virginia, right? Yeah. They've got Wellness Together Canada that for counseling, and also check out the Feed Loop section in the chat where there are crisis, where we have resources for crisis and people who, oh gosh, my goodness, resources for crisis and for people who live with pain. I see Therese laughing at me. I think it's time for me to wrap up.
We did have one more question. I don't know if you have time or whether somebody could get back to Elizabeth during the course of today?
I think we should move on to the second
Sure.
part, but maybe we
Okay.
can flag this question and somebody could answer it in the Feedloop chat. That'd be really
Okay.
helpful.
Yeah, okay. So that concludes the first part of this session. A reminder that that French-speaking groups are available. Please change your name through Zoom to include FN, and the tech staff will move you into that group. If you would like to stay for the breakout rooms, sign in to Zoom if you haven't done that already. And I would like to thank all the speakers and participants who took part today. Rob Bodice and Alex Haggard, Neil Pearson, Jenny Loker and Desmond Williams, and Delane, Jenny, and all the peer support people who are going to stay around for the second part of this meeting. I would like to thank our sponsors for today, for the conference. This is, you can see them. Yes, they're coming up. I'd like to thank the CIHR, the Canadian Institute of Health Research, the PEPA project, which is the Partnership for the Engagement of Patients in Pain Research, the Chronic Pain Network, Pain BC. And without the help of our sponsors, this event would not have been possible. And that the next part of part 2 of this session will not be recorded. The recording will stop once I leave the screen. And this is basically the formal end of PTPT 2023. And it has been exciting. It's been an honor to be a part of the steering committee for me. And we'll see you in 2024.